If President Trump called you up after we get out of this interview, and asked you, he said, you know what, I'll give you one or two freebies or changes to the immigration laws that I'll do an executive order on, what would be the go-to ones you'd really want with regards to reform that would affect your clients, or something you think is needed for justice?
So I think a permanent solution um, for an expanded DACA. So right now, it was always strange to me the way that DACA was written up, where people aged out.
The
You couldn't be
cutoff,
over, yeah, you couldn't be
yeah,
over 35 or something, or was it
that was weird.
31? And so if you met every other requirement, but you were, a day too old, you didn't qualify,
Hmm.
despite the fact that you were more ingrained in our community and our country than, those that just barely met the 5 years of continuous presence. So I thought that was strange. So I would expand that to provide a pathway to eventual citizenship, even if it's a longer than usual pathway for those who were brought here as children and don't have any serious criminal history. I think I would get rid of the unlawful presence bars, where you have, everybody's saying we want you to just go back and do it the right way. And so if you've been brought here as a child and now you're 25 and you say, you're right, I'm going to take, you've convinced me. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it the right way. The law says if you've already been here a year illegally, if you leave, you trigger a 10-year bar. If you stay, you don't have that bar. And so there's a limited exception for that. Not even an exception, a possible waiver. So if you have a U.S. citizen, spouse or parent, or lawful permanent resident spouse or parent, and you can show they'd suffer extreme hardship, then you can get a waiver to that 10-year bar.
Hmm.
But if you don't, then you're out of luck. And so if you tell somebody, yeah, you can go back and do it the right way and go to an immigrant visa interview, but if you do, the second you leave, you have a 10-year bar. So we're effectively punishing you for doing supposedly what we want you to do, instead of incentivizing people. So if we're going to say we want you to go back and do things properly, then I think we need to incentivize that rather than penalize it. I don't like mandatory detention either.
Hmm.
Um, Anything where a judge is completely bound by the language of Congress, that because you always, what happens is, you say, Congress will say, we want to keep dangerous people off the street, and so they created mandatory detention laws. But the way it's written, you will have people who are not a danger to the community, who are not a flight risk, but meet the technical definition of being subject to mandatory detention. And you can have, I mean, I've had clients detained for 3 years in
Wow.
civil immigration proceedings, where, their criminal offense had them in jail for like 20 days or something. And
And the
so
state has to
it
pay
just,
for the
yeah.
incarceration,
Well, I don't know if the state
or just the
pays for
government.
it. Probably, yeah,
By
yeah,
state, I mean the philosophical state. The government pays for it. Yeah, not the
yeah.
state of
Sure, sure.
Utah or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's crazy. I mean, when you think about, that's just insane. It's insane. Like, I think anyone, even the people, anti-race people, would be like, why are we paying to keep this person locked up? And it just goes to them not dealing with the situation too often, and knowing that, yeah, there's a guy who just maybe did some small, went to, a grocery store and took something that could create problems for them in the future, especially depending on how the state regulation on that
yeah.
theft was. And all of a sudden, you're paying tens of thousands of dollars over a year just to incarcerate this person for something that's not going to be a problem. And then their family has to go on, and it was an example in the book, their family then has to go on welfare and get more government money because the breadwinner is not there anymore. So it doesn't make sense
Yeah.
on all ends.